Hello and welcome back to Social Day. Sorry about a little bit of background noise here, and I'm on a different stream right now. This is stream 2, and here we are getting ready to welcome Christine Gritmon to the Social Day virtual stage. And she's going to be talking about rocking your personal brand on social media. And she's coming in all the way from New York, so goodness time it is over there. So without any further ado, let's give a huge virtual round of applause for Christine and welcome her here for a fantastic talk right now. Welcome, Christine.
Hey, how are you doing, Social Day? Hey. Am I on now? I think I'm on. I was just kind of rocking out to that theme music. Hi, I am Christine Gritmon. As Sam said, I am here from New York, and it is morning here. It's 10 a.m., so I'm drinking from my beautiful Agora Pulse mug, so I'm nice and caffeinated for all of you to talk about how to rock your personal brand. So there's a few things that go into that, and that, of course, is part of how I rock my personal brand. I'm a bit animated, so I'm literally animated. All right, so how to be a personal brand rock star. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to figure out what goes into your personal brand, and then I'm going to talk about how to convey it, how to put it forth for the world to see on social media. All right, so the first thing, this is just an overview here. The first thing we got to figure out is, who are you? Sounds like simultaneously a very simple question and a very complex question, but we're going to drill it down into the parts that really matter for rocking your personal brand on social media. So who are you? Why should people care? This is a huge part. If you're just a person ordinarily in the world, yes, all humans have value, of course. You're special by virtue of existing. The fact is, brand into the very, very crowded digital landscape, you have to give people why they should care, who you are, bother following you, and ideally bother hiring you. What to make them think? Ultimately, we've all heard that quote about your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So that is certainly important. Putting a brand forth into the world, all about controlling the narrative, ultimately. People are hopefully going to have thoughts about you either way. We want them to, right? So it's about defining what those thoughts are going to be to the degree that we are able to control that. And then how do you want to make them feel? Because ultimately, how you make them feel is going to have a lot more lasting resonance and a lot more power than just what you make them think. We are emotional creatures. All right. So, number one, who are you? People don't know you until they know you, right? And we want more of them to know you. So who are you? And that starts actually are. So what makes you you? The biggest mistake people make when they're putting themselves forth on social in a professional context, this is very key in a professional context, is they worry they should be. They worry about making sure they seem professional, making they kind of go along with what's in their industry. There's sort of a copycat mentality going on, simply, right? We know what works. We know what's expected. We're able to feel expectations if we're a little bit more typical. That is not what makes you stand out. And your personal brand is all about what makes you stand out. This doesn't have to be wholly original. Part of my personal brand, the color red. Part of a lot of brands. Cola is red. Virgin is red. Social Day sponsor Marketed Live is red. There's plenty of stuff that's red out there. I don't own red, except I sorted in a certain way. Not about coming up with something from whole cloth, something being the most original person in the world. It's about taking something that's part of you to 11. Already part of you is a really, really key part. Here's first of all, if it's your brand, you're going to have to maintain. If you're meant to fake, if you're role, it's going to get exhausting. Extra, it's really not worth it. You don't have to. You're interesting, and I promise you, you're interesting enough as you are. To tease out those little pieces that maybe you don't give enough. Maybe they're the things that make you weird, a little quirky. Own them and rock them. So there's that. And then another thing that sort of trips people up there is, you know, in a that you're going to have to maintain it and you don't want to yourself. There's also the fact that people can smell fakeness a mile away, especially we're in a very digital era because it's so much easier to copy them. You've all seen the artists on Instagram who all look exactly the same. They all look like Kardashians, right? So in this scene, you want to stand down your human self. There's also the fact that the actual point of difference in your it is that you do does it. So you do it the way that you do it. Someone else better on a technical level. But when it comes down to it, people are going to resonate with their brand or resonate with your brand. The more human you can make your brand, the more you can put forth the human elements, your brand different. The only thing that truly make your brand different, the more people are going to find something to latch onto, to resonate with. I'm going to paraphrase Bob Berg here, one of my very favorite quotes. People don't buy from or brand. People buy from people who they know, like, and trust. Not about know, like, trust today. But so that's to not be afraid of your little quirk. Of the things you use the things you are most on board for amping up and put those forward as part of your personal brand. But again, you don't have to be cartoonish about it either. You don't have to literally dye your hair your brand color. That's a little crazy. So what makes you you? When you're figuring that out, also, it can be hard to be objective about ourselves, right? Seeing the forest for the trees and all of that. Check in with some people. Check in with people who know you well, but you also want to check in with people who know you gently, because that is what's really going to show what rises to the top. My sister, my parents, they know a ton of things about me. My best friend, they know so many different layers of me and so many different parts of me. So sometimes asking someone who has met me once or someone who follows me on social media but doesn't really know me, asking them what stands out can also be really useful because it shows what rises to the top, what stands out in a way that can be hard for us to tell. That said, I always recommend, if you're going the personal branding route, check in with people close to you occasionally just to make sure that you're keeping it real, because nothing is worse than following someone online, feeling like you know, like, and trust them, than meeting them in real life and they're a completely different human being. My favorite compliment is, "You're exactly like I expected you to be." I kind of love that. And I know a lot of you out there today, so you probably have experienced that. What are your brand values? That's another part of bringing yourself into it. But once you're taking yourself, who's been for decades, and transitioning it to a brand, that is serving a purpose, right? Most of us here, there might be some straight up influencers here at this conference today, but for the most part, I would imagine, and even if we are influencers, for the most part, I would imagine we're trying to do something with the brand. When you go from being a person to being a brand, it's usually in the pursuit of some sort of commerce. So why? Let's get Simon Sinek with it. Start with why. What are your values that you are bringing forth into this marketplace? Why are you doing what you're doing? It can't be just to make money, because the fact is there's loads of ways to make money. Why are you doing this? In my case, example, my brand values are that I believe marketing doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, it shouldn't. I believe simpler marketing is often more effective and better marketing because it cuts through all the crap. I believe that small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities, and that's a huge part of why I chose my niche of helping small businesses. And I believe people have their own stories to tell. People have their own specialness. People can tell their own stories in ways that they can't possibly outsource as effectively. Empowering people to own a rock star. So those are some of my brand when it comes down to it, which is all about kind of encouraging people to succeed. Here's the thing about knowing your brand values and why you're doing what you're doing. Much like with part 1, which is the what stands out and makes you you, you can take that with you anywhere. So today, I'm a social media strategist. This is my 4th career. Let's say I start career number 5. Let's say in like 2 years, I randomly had this epiphany that I should have been a tax attorney. Yeah, no, that's a bad example because that takes a while to happen. But let's say I switch careers. I can bring this with me. These years I've spent building up my personal brand, I'll be able to bring that with me into whatever I choose. Jeff Bezos from Amazon is a great example because the fact is, he doesn't just run Amazon, he runs all sorts of other companies. Oh, Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson from Virgin. Boy, has he taken his personal brand everywhere. And he could start something that has nothing to do with Virgin, and it's a Sir Richard Branson project, and boom, people kind of know what they're in for on a certain level, just because they know, like, and trust him and his brand. So if you've got who you are and why you stand out and what your brand values are, you can truly take those things anywhere. And that is something absolutely worth building. All right, so another thing we can do here when figuring out our personal brand and who we are is how to be recognizable. Because here's the thing, and I got to get the details on the numbers of this study. I quoted this in a live stream yesterday too, and I was like, I have to get these numbers. But years ago, studies were done showing approximately how many times on average people need to encounter you or your brand, really your brand, your company, your product, before making a purchase decision. So again, that gets down to the know, like, and trust. First, they have to know and be aware that you exist. That's the first brand touch. Then they have to grow to like you. That's a few more of those brand touches. Then they have to get to trust you. That's even more brand touches. So it took a certain number. Maybe it was like 7 or something in the old days. With social media, we are being touched by brands all the time. We are being touched by people all the time. That sounds weird. But there's so much information overload out there, and there's so many people trying to get our attention that it takes a lot more than 7 brand touches now on average. So you want to make sure that you're able to capture all of those brand touches so they can build upon each other. If someone sees you in one place and then they see you in another place, but they don't realize that they saw you in that first place, they don't make the connection that you're that same person or company or brand, that's not 2 brand touches. That's 1 brand touch and 1 brand touch. So you want to make sure that you are recognizable so that when someone sees you again, they say, oh, I recognize this person. I've seen them before. You want to make sure to take all of those pieces and form a cohesive puzzle, all those puzzle pieces, and form a cohesive picture in people's minds, in people's hearts, in people's brains. You want to make sure that all of those brand touches are able to be connected. So how do you do that? I'm not going to dictate to you how your personal brand needs to be conveyed. I will give you some examples. So some people, hello. One really, really good part of this is, unless you're an identical twin, no one else face. If you are an identical twin, I still know people who have branded effectively, like Jennifer Watson from Agorapulse. She's a twin. She's speaking at this conference, I believe, and she's managed to brand because the fact is she still has her own interests and persona. So putting your face out there is a really good way to make sure that people know that they've seen you before. Color is what I use. You don't have to use color. Some people like having a logo. That's really not necessary. You don't have to go nuts and go hire a designer in order to stand out. However, having a pretty consistent way that you write your name or your brand name is a good idea. A consistent logo, a consistent font face, a consistent color, all of that. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to do with visuals. It can be brand voice. You can have phrases that you tend to say over and over. You can even come up with some quotable tidbits, and people are like, oh, I've heard that before, much like Bob Berg, who I mentioned earlier with the know, like, and trust. You can also, just the ways that you show up, the type of content you put out there, for example. There's plenty of people getting known for TikTok because they do their TikToks in a certain way, in a certain style. I know people whose Instagram posts I recognize instantly, even if they're just like text in a beautiful graphic lockup. I still know whose it is because of the way that they do it. And because usually the message in that quote is consistent with their brand messaging. So again, it can be the type of content you create. It can be a series that you do. It can be brand voice. It can be things that you say. It can even be subject matter, the type of things that you talk about. Here's the person who's always hammering on about this topic from this angle. So there's a lot of different ways to brand, and it has to also be about what you like to create. Here's the thing. You can say, oh, well, I don't really like video, but I feel like I'm supposed to do video, so I guess I'll get known for my videos. You're not going to create them at the same level as you would if you're at heart a writer. You're going to want to make your writing to be the thing people know you for. Whatever it is that you put out there and get known for, please focus less on what you feel like you should be doing. Focus more on what you'll enjoy doing, what feels natural to you, what is going to show you in your best light, because you'll do it better and you'll maintain it. This is all about consistency here if you want people to recognize you and your brand. And I promise this is the longest we'll spend on a slide. I'm going to zip through the others because I know we got to get to the Q&A. And I like the Q&A parts much better, just FYI. All right, so here's the thing. Your personal brand, as I said before, it's about you and values. It needs to be transferable to anything you do in life. But if you are applying it to a particular pursuit, to a particular industry, because that's where the brand part comes in, right? Don't make people try too hard to figure out what you're living. It can't be all about that. You yourself just as your current job title. What happens if you lose your job? What happens if you decide to change? Then all that you've built is for naught. So you want to make sure that your brand itself is really solid in who you are and in things that are not dependent on what is something of an external circumstance, which is what you presently do for a living. But you also want to make sure it's clear. Don't make people work too hard to figure it out. Ultimately, you do want people to recognize you on their screen to say, oh, I've seen that person before. You don't want them to then say, but I'm not sure why. Why do I know this person? Why do I have this person on my screen? Why am I following them? Click unfollow. So don't make people work too hard to figure out why they should know you. What do you do? How can they hire you? Can they even hire you? Or are you just producing content for fun? So don't make people work too hard to figure out what it is that you do, even though that shouldn't be the whole story. All right, now I'm going on to the parts that I'm going to go quicker because these are all about your brand on social media. Here we go. So why should people care? Why? Yes, you're a person on the internet for you. So is someone else. Do people care about you? Why should they? Why should they know who you are? Why are you famous to them? So for them, this starts with what can you do for them? You start with what you could them. You again need to start with what's legitimate for you, what's genuine to you. But in terms of how you convey it, the messaging that you people ultimately, everyone's trying to get their attention. Why do you deserve it? What you can do for them, and what is your product or service? Because your product or service ultimately does something for them. So in my case, again, using myself as an example, what can I do for them? The answer isn't just teach them how to do social media. The answer is really make them feel less helpless on social media. The answer is actually make them money. That's what I can do for them. I can help them make money. That's what they're going for. So it's also a feeling. It's also making, as I said, making them feel less hopeless. So what can you do for them? Again, that is not a product, that is not a service, that is not a function. It is an end. What's the end result they can get from you? And what's the end result they can get from following something? Do they just like your smiling face appearing on their feeds all the time? I mean, that's also possible. Do you inspire them? Do you make them think? What can they get? What's in it for them? What do they get out of following you when there's so many other people trying to get attention in their brains and on their feeds? Who are you for and who are you not for? Going back to one of the very first things that I said, your personal brand needs to not be samey. You need to not be looking at, oh, what's expected? What's standard in my industry? Because it's not about your industry. And it's not about what's standard. It's about what makes you you. So that by its very nature means you're not for everyone. If you're for everyone, congratulations, you're bland. So make sure that you have in mind who you're for, who you actually want to see you, who you want to resonate with, who you want to connect to. And I don't just mean connecting as in adding them on LinkedIn or something. I mean connect to on a deep level. Who do you want to get through to? Because if you say everyone, you're going to get through to no one. Another marketing cliche, but they happen. This doesn't mean you have to actively go about trying to turn people off. I'm not about to say, oh, I want big corporations to hate me. No, of course I don't. I just really care about getting through to small business owners. So it's more about focusing on what you're focusing on and not worrying about the rest. And you have to be clear on who you're focusing on and who you're speaking to in order for that to really get through. What do they need, and why are you the one to deliver it? Again, this part is where we're crossing over. We're no longer in your personal brand much. Now we're into how you express it, the content you produce online, the messaging that you put out there. Just like I said before about how it can't be a mystery what you do or how they can hire you to do it. It can't be a mystery how you can meet their needs. But again, repeating what I said in the first bullet point of this slide, what they need is not your product or service. It's the end result. What my clients need is money. They need their businesses to remain viable. In order for their businesses to remain viable, they need to learn how to communicate about their businesses on social media. They need to get those eyeballs on themselves. They need to get followers. They need to get butts in the door, which is the most important metric for them, not likes or comments or shares. It's butts in the door. It's money in their hand. What my clients need is for their small businesses to remain viable. What does a client need? And then why are you the deliberate? The reason, again, it's not your product and service. Sorry. The reason why you're the one to deliver it is not because you know how to do social media. It's because you understand their needs and you care about their needs. It goes back to those brand values. I had a client who was a financial advisor. And you think, okay, financial advisor, he helps people manage their money. He knew who he was and wasn't for. He was for people who had reached a certain level of success and now for what they wanted to do with that money. He wasn't for people who were just starting to save. He was for people who wanted his advice and guidance on financial habits that would make them able to accomplish their dreams. He was not, and this is really key, he was not for somebody who just wanted to have someone else manage their money. I've made this money, I'm going to hire a professional to just manage it for me. No, he was for clients who wanted engagement and involvement and advice on best practices and financial habits. So what do his clients need? His clients need to feel that they're hard work. Now they're able to put their grandchildren through college because now they're able to get that boat, because now they're able to retire and not be worried. That's what his clients needed. He was the one to provide it because he tapped into all those hopes and dreams. He tapped into their lives. He wasn't just looking at dollars on a spreadsheet. He was looking at them, their lives, their dreams, their whole person. That's who he was for. That's what they needed. That's why he was the one to deliver it. So think about that. Think about their actual needs beyond the service you want to sell them. And think about why you are a better choice to provide it, than all of those other people out there. It's not because you're the best in your industry. It's because you're the best for them, based on a result of your own personal journey and the things that you are bringing to the table, including your brand values. All right. Oh, and then what can they expect to see or hear if they follow you? I know we're coming up on the Q&A very soon. What can they expect to see or hear if they follow you? That your Instagram grid on your profile is the mag cover of you. If someone looks at your top 9 posts on Instagram, if someone looks at your most recent Facebook post, your most recent tweet, your most recent, LinkedIn stuff, they should have just your profile. They should immediately have some sense of what am I doing to put on my newsfeed if I follow this person? What am I choosing to open in my email if I subscribe to this person's email list? What am I choosing to give attention to? This attention that all these other people are trying to get. What am I going to get here? People should have some expectation of what they're going to start seeing and hearing if they follow you. I'm going to zip through the next few pretty quickly. What do you want to make them think? How do you want them to describe you to others? This is really key. Hopefully, if you're in their brain enough, if they have enough awareness of you, if they have enough liking of you, and hopefully trusting of you, they will then trust that by recommending you to others or talking about you to others, that you'll make them look good. So how do you want them to describe you? Do you want them to describe you as highly professional and competent? Do you want them to describe you as so much fun? Do you want them to describe you as totally original? How do you want them to describe you? Think of some words. And here's part of why thinking of actual words is important. Not only do you want to have a really clear sense of what that description looks like, but let's say person A is looking for something. Person B knows about you, and person B says to person A, hey, I know this great person. Description. The words in the description should then trigger person A to say, that's exactly what I was looking for. Here's the thing, person A is amazing. If you can incorporate some of those words and phrases into your copy or into your overall brand proposition or even into your sales pages, if you can take some of those words that person A is looking for when they're describing and put them into your materials, it can practically skip person B. Person B barely even has to describe you to person A because person A is probably going to be like, oh, I found that person when I was looking. So think about how you want people to describe you, what you want them to use, and consider using those words as well a little bit and making sure that you espouse those words. Also think about words you don't want people using and try to really not display that. What information do you want them to have? Again, it's about your story. It's about what you do. You want to make sure that they know, but also what information do you have about you? Do you want them to know what previous career was? Because it informs how you come into this one. As I said, fourth career. Number 1 was marketing, which matters. I spent 10 years in the corporate beauty industry in New York City. It actually brings a lot to the table. But then I actually got into social media while a journalist. When I was a journalist, that I had been in marketing definitely helped me get into getting my name out there, following, developing a personal brand, my stories read, getting engagement for contests I was running in the paper, getting people to come to my events. So my past in marketing absolutely formed the type of journalist that I was in terms of being able to bring readership to the paper. But my past as a journalist is able to come into my social media strategist because I built that brand and I got to know a lot of small business in my community, which is how my really started. But it also shows that I can communicate. It also shows that I can tell a story. So all of your journey actually do relate to how you do what you do that no one else does. So figure out what parts of your story you want to share. What parts of those do you want to inform your current brand? Because it's all part of you. What would make them contact you directly? What's going to be that trigger point where they say, okay, long-time listener, first-time caller, I'm contacting them. And then finally, how do you want to make them feel? This is what it all comes down to. When we think of people who we enjoy spending time with, it's because of how they make us feel. It's not even necessarily because they're a great conversationalist or they enjoy doing the same things that we enjoy doing. Sometimes it's just the feeling we get when we're with them, and vice versa. Who do we want to avoid? There's people in your life, I'm sure, where you're like, I don't know why I don't like them. I just don't. Unless you're a saint. There's probably people out there where you can't pinpoint it. They didn't do anything horrible. You just don't like them. You just don't vibe with them. So you want to make sure that you're aware and somewhat in control of the instant emotional impact you bring to the right people. Again, going back, you can't please everyone. If you're going to be this entity that nobody dislikes, it means you're bland. I'm sorry. So instant emotional impact. What do you want people to feel when you come on the screen? I like hoping that when people see me on their screens, they smile. I hope. And I've hugged a lot of them in real life, so I hope that also carries through. They can feel that hug through the screen. So what kind of instant emotional impact do you want people to have? But it doesn't even have to be all like happy and cheery and fluffy like that. The instant emotional impact, again, to go back to that financial advisor who I used to work with, when people entered his office, did they get a big fluffy hug and a huge smile? No, he's a very serious person. But they felt calmer. They felt calmer in his presence because they came in a little bit, these people have a lot of money that they've worked very hard for. So they came in wanting to make sure that they could trust him, wanting to make sure they knew what they were getting into, wanting to really feel like they had a partner in turning their hard-earned money into life goals. And he was actually fairly young for a financial advisor. So there was that element too. They needed to feel like this youngish guy knew what he was doing. The way he made them feel was that they were in good hands. He had an instantly calming effect on his clients. Doesn't mean he put them to sleep. It means he said the things that they needed to hear and meant them. Similarly, I have a agent. I'm trying to break her of the habit to get people scared. She was always taught, make people feel scared and stressed, and then swoop in with shit. I'm trying to break her of that. I'm like, people don't want to feel scared and stressed. The fact that you can deliver the relief at the end of it doesn't change the fact that people aren't even going to get to the relief point because they're going to tune out. Make people feel freaked out, unless what it is making them feel heard. There's a fine line between making them stressed out and scared versus making them feel their concerns are heard. It doesn't mean you have to be positive all the time. You can express stress. You can express their frustrations. Just not doom and gloom and I'm the only solution. There's a fine line there. So instant emotional impact. I hear the people behind the scenes getting ready for the Q&A, so I'll make sure to get through these. The after effect of your content. What lingers? What ideas from it linger? What thoughts from it linger? What conversations does your content spark? What makes them go back to it? What makes them share it with somebody? Think about that sort of thing because that's part of your brand's overall emotional impact as well. Who would they compare you to? This is similar to how would they describe you, but it takes it a step further. Look at brands and people who you resonate with. Why? What about them makes you tune in? What about them makes you feel connected to them? What about them makes you feel like you know, like, and trust them? This doesn't mean be a copycat of that. This means actually study how they accomplish that. Usually it's by being themselves, honestly, and by producing good content. But how you can incorporate it into your own brand, because what resonates with you probably means there's something that inside of you already. Come on. There we go. And then just a quick branding best practices. I hope to see your questions coming through in just a couple minutes. This is just a quick use all options at your disposal to communicate who you are. I can't tell you how many LinkedIn profiles I see with no banner image or no about section, or their headline is just their current title and employer. That's not taking advantage of all your opportunities to communicate who you are. On every social media platform and your own website, yes, you do still need one. make sure that you're taking opportunities to communicate something about your brand. If you send out emails, you don't have to get all fancy with the formatting. I do. I go a little crazy with the GIFs and the images and the colors, all of that. You don't have to do all of that, but have a strong voice and remind people of who you are and what you do. Make them feel like they're having a conversation with the same you that they see on social media or that they see in real life. Again, be recognizable so the touches compound. Make sure that if someone follows you on one platform and they follow you on another platform, they're not wondering if you're the same person. I've recently been on a rash of, I've had a lot of Twitter engagement. And so I've started adding my most frequently interacted with Twitter people on LinkedIn. I've started looking them up because a lot of times their Twitter name is their real name, right? They're not like Hot Princess 87. So I look them up on LinkedIn. Hopefully I can tell that they're the same person. They don't have to have the exact same picture necessarily, but it's recognizable, not only the picture, but also the description of who they are and what they do. I can see enough information to tell that it's the same person. So make sure that you are recognizable everywhere so the touches compound. Again, just be aware you're the same you everywhere you go, but the way you communicate on the different platforms is very different. Facebook really wants conversations, and that's what the apps too. The old days of just here's a link, and I admit if you look at my Facebook page right, a lot of here's a link because I have a very busy week with a lot of things going on. But you want to start conversations on Facebook. People who think Facebook reach is dead are the people who aren't starting conversations. Instagram, pretty pictures. Yes, you want good captions. Yes, you need your hash. The fact is, no one's going to read those captions unless you stop their scroll, unless your image is sufficiently arresting that they. But Instagram, it's about stopping them visually instantly. Oh, sorry. LinkedIn. Business. No one cares about your cat. I'm sorry. Unless in the cat industry, and even then. So LinkedIn, you really want to be aware of the mindset people are in there. It doesn't mean don't be human. It doesn't mean don't vulnerabilities. It doesn't mean don't start conversations, but it does mean people are there with a business mindset. Twitter's all about conversations in a different way from Facebook. But the fact is, Twitter, I was just talking to a friend yesterday, her engagement on Twitter has gone down as mine has gone up because I think a few months ago, they might have shifted the algorithm a little bit because she used to get a lot of traction just sharing, here's a link, here's a thing, blah, blah, blah. And she's not conversing as much. And so her reach is going down. Me, on the other hand, my notifications is where I start on Twitter. I care so much more about my notifications and engaging with people than I do about reading my feed. So Twitter's about conversations at this point. That's how you're going to get ahead on Twitter. So thank you. Mwah! I just hit a light. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for the Q&A. Here's how you can find me everywhere. And that top link there, gritman.com/connect. You give me your information. I will follow you. I'll connect to you and you can follow me. Hey, Lucy.
Well, you can see me. Sorry, the connection's a bit dodgy here. How are you doing, Christine? Thank you so much for such a great session.
Thanks.
It was so great to hear from you. It was so great to hear from you. So you have got a few questions over there in the app. I'm only going to ask one question. The others, I've told them you'll come over and answer them directly because we haven't got much time before the next session happens, and we're in our break. But that talk was so good, and everybody's like, this session's so good. Thank you for all the tips. It's been amazing. So the question I'm going to go with today is, for someone that hasn't done my own gifts before, what do you recommend are the best type of gifts to do?
I definitely recommend start with what type of reaction gifts you tend to use. Like, pay attention to that. If you always use Pam from the American Office saying, yup, then make sure you have a yup GIF. If you always have, Rob Schneider saying, you can do it, you can do it GIF. Look at the GIFs that you use in the reactions and also in text. Look at what you tend to say to people in reply and make a GIF for that so that you can reply with a GIF.
Yeah, we do love your gifts in this office. There's another question from Marianne Avery here. She wants to know what's your favourite gift?
My favorite, it's a very simple one. My favorite of mine or my favorite in general? I'll give you both. My favorite of mine is one that just says love and hugs, just because I recognize myself the most in it. It's very me. And my favorite of other people is one that has Shaquille O'Neal doing this shimmy superimposed with a cat doing a similar shimmy. So Shaq and the cat shimmying together is my favorite GIF of all time.
Oh, wow. And we also have, why is everybody so excited about gifts? So is it GIF or GIF?
GIF.
It's GIF. Yes,
I don't care what the founder says. The person who invented them and named them says GIF. He's wrong. Once you put a creation out into the world, it is no longer yours.
That would be a good quote, won't it, for your thing, Emily? Let me ask you one more question, because this is fun. Jason says he has a question. Can your personal brand be different to your business brand, or is it best to keep it consistent together?
There can be nuances. So I would say if you are a person who works for a larger company, your professional brand should certainly be more aligned with that company's values. It has to incorporate a lot of that stirred in. You have to really espouse and embody that. But it still has to be you, because, again, it has to be maintainable and it has to be genuine. Matthew Kobach, I'm not sure, from Fast, who used to be with NASDAQ, is a great example of this. Matthew has developed an incredible following on social media. He's developed a great community, and he now is the social media director for a new company called Fast, which is actually launching today, I believe. And he's done a great job of doing both, because people are still engaging with him. He is still providing value. He is still speaking as himself, and people are loving it. But when he does things for Fast, there's a recognizable element of Matthew in there, but he's really speaking for the brand when he's speaking for the brand.
Oh, there you go. Well, Jason, I hope that answers your question. So thank you so much, Christine, for such an amazing session and for answering all of our questions here. Obviously, if you want to ask Christine more questions, you can go ahead and do that within the app, or if people want to,
I love it. Reach out.
Yeah, and if people want to contact you apart from in our app, because this app is going to be around until the next social day, which is amazing, so we can all still be best friends and talk to each other until next year.
And I want to be there in person next year. I hope I'm allowed.
We'll get you over to London, and hopefully we'll all be together, and we'll be doing all of the cocktail drinks with Agorapols and everyone else for real, which will be amazing. And laughing at throwing my hands all over the place here in this room. Oh, they're laughing. No, not laughing at me. I thought they were laughing at me.
They're laughing with you, Lucy.
So tell me, Christine, where can we get in contact with you? Where can we go? Love the Agorapulse mug. I was actually wearing my Agorapulse jumper this morning.
I'm gonna be on Social Media Lab with Scott in a couple hours, so people should go check that out on the Agorapulse Facebook page. But I'm very easy to find. I'm the only Christine Gritman there is. My maiden name I had to share with somebody, but I've been the only Christine Gritman for nearly, a bunch of years now. 13.
Oh, wow.
12. Anyway. But yeah, so Christine Gritman, I'm easy to find. I'm C. Gritman on Twitter and Instagram, Christine Gritman Inc. on Facebook, Christine Gritman on LinkedIn, and I'm Gritman.com.
Wow. Okay, awesome. So make sure you go and follow Christine and ask her questions. She's more than happy to, and you will get a lovely smiley face and lots of exciting gifts from her. Or gifs, whatever you call them. And let's give a huge round of applause for Christine. Come on, everybody. Let's give her a round of applause. Amazing. Well done. We will see you in real life, we hope, next year, and we'll catch up with you really soon. Thank you for an amazing session, Christine. So, guys, don't forget now. See you later. Thank you, Christine.